Altos is brought to you with the kind compliments of Rituals, Coffee House and Belgrose Funeral Home.
Good evening and welcome to Altos, a weekly news and current affairs program produced by the Catholic News and broadcast on Trinity TV and TTT. I'm your host Neil Parsonlal. Here's a look at this week's top stories. Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon says Pope Leo and US President Donald Trump are talking at two different levels, saying the Holy Father's call for peace is what the world needs. Pope Leo condemns the billions being spent on wars as he arrives in the Cameroon. Hundreds of faithful across the country participate in Divine Mercy. We have team coverage from Arima, Grand Couva, and San Fernando. And later we tell you about the growing poor and what the Society of St. Vincent de Paul needs from you. And now to our top story. Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon says peace is always what we must strive for because it is the higher ground. Speaking to Altos on the international controversy in which US President Donald Trump criticized the Holy Father, His Grace said both men are talking at two different levels.
The Holy Father is not supposed to be, he's not a politician, he's not a political figure. And so Trump's comments completely misunderstand the role of the Holy Father. And I think because he disagrees with the stance that the Holy Father has taken on the war, on renaming a ministry from Ministry of Defense to Ministry of War, to the way in which warmongering seems to be dominating the country and that leader. And the Holy Father has been absolutely clear. Peace is always on the table, and peace is always what we must strive for, and peace is always the higher ground that we must travel. And when we don't travel the higher ground of peace, we're not being human, and we're not being as fully human as we can be. So I would say we're talking at two totally different levels with two very different understandings. And one is is interpretation of the good news, and the other one is leading our civilization to places, well, it could be interesting.
On Divine Mercy Sunday, the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception was filled with a special kind of joy. Men and women who entered the church at Easter, known as neophytes, gathered for a mass that marked not the end of their journey, but the very beginning. Clisha Best has more.
Freshly baptized or received into the Catholic Church, these neophytes came to receive a message from Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon that was both a blessing and a challenge. The Archbishop reminded them that their initiation is not a graduation. The real work of discipleship has just begun.
It's important that you see this not as a graduation and you're done. The journey now starts. The journey now starts. Now you have a brand new journey. Now you feed at the table of the Lord. Now you receive him as he is in the Eucharist.
Drawing from the early church, His Grace outlined 4 pillars for their new life: devotion to the apostles' teaching, fellowship, the breaking of the bread, and prayer.
The growing in relationship with him is spending time every day in prayer. And that's what the early church did. And their devotion to the prayers is both their devotion to coming to the temple to pray together as Christians, but it is also the devotion to wake up in the morning and do your morning offering. To sanctify the day by all the different ways in which you will remember and offer to God things during the day.
The Archbishop closed with a warning and a promise. Distractions will come, but keep your eyes on Jesus. And when the Lord is your shepherd, there is nothing you will ever want. I am Clisha Best for Catholic News, Altos.
Now is the time for the church.
Hundreds of Roman Catholics participated in Divine Mercy observances on Sunday, April 12th, from Arima to Grand Couva and in San Fernando. The message to the faithful was clear. Jesus wants us to be merciful to others as he has been merciful to us. Our team of Roger Sant, Clysha Best and Dale Sideno bring us the stories of Divine Mercy.
Divine Mercy Sunday is a Catholic feast celebrated on the Sunday after Easter, focusing on God's mercy and forgiveness inspired by the visions of Saint Faustina. Across the Archdiocese, there were processions as members of the Catholic faithful proclaimed the words of Jesus to Sister Faustina. Delivering a talk at Pinto Road in Arima that brought together the clusters of Santa Rosa, Malabar Parish priest Father Robert Christo said he experienced first-hand divine mercy from many whom he knew and did not know on Saturday, April 11th, at the funeral of his mother, Mona Christo.
The mercy is compassion. It means I can suffer with. Church, I felt it yesterday, how you felt my pain. And I only could stand up there like a lion. Me know what get over me. Because when I watch all you saying, that is the church. I felt the mercy. I felt the love. I felt how you felt my pain.
Mercy, he said, is treating somebody better than they deserve. Delving into the importance of divine mercy, he explained that it is about restoration of our souls and that mercy is not a word but a person.
Mercy came through Jesus Christ. Mercy was not a word. Mercy came to us in a person you can touch. And now he's saying, since I've gone up to the ascension, I am leaving myself with you. So even the Eucharist in it, if it's Jesus, is mercy.
Also delivering a talk was parish priest of the St. Francis of Assisi RC Church in Sangre Grande, Father Steve Duncan. He reminded the faithful that if we are not open to the vast ocean of God's mercy, then we will never be able to access it.
So today, as we hear that call again to open our hearts to divine mercy, remember to trust Him who is mercy itself. Trust Him who gives graces. Trust Him.
I'm Roger Sant for Catholic News Altos, and now we join my colleague Clysha Best for her report on the Divine Mercy celebrations at La Vega in Grand Couva. Clysha?
Thank you, Roger. The faithful belonging to the Grand Couva Tabakit RC Parish gathered at the Divine Mercy Shrine, La Vega Estate, Grand Couva, for Divine Mercy Sunday Mass that focused not on judgment, but on restoration. Two preachers delivered a powerful message: no one is beyond the reach of God's mercy. Deacon Keith Das opened his talk with a bold declaration: mercy restores.
Mercy is not social acceptance. Mercy is divine restoration. Mercy restores us to the full nature that God created us in.
Father Jesse Maingo then invited the congregation into what he called a Galilee walk with Christ, reminding them that the Eucharist is not a symbol, it is Jesus himself.
When we approach the altar, we approach mercy himself. Jesus is mercy incarnate. But God's mercy is so real that it's actually a person. God is mercy himself. It's very hard for us to understand and grasp the depth of that. But mercy gives us back our tomorrows. Pope Francis used to say that.
He stressed the link between confession and the Eucharist, warning that sin isolates, but the sacrament restores.
Sometimes I think to only let God love me when I feel like I'm full of good works. When I feel holy. God is free. He is sovereign. He is Lord. There's nothing you and I could do to peacock him. Say peacock him. Put up your feathers. Say, Lord, look at me. This is what I did, this is it, and now I let you love me. Because it's very hard. The hardest thing in the spiritual life is to let God love us.
The Mass ended with an invitation to approach the altar, not just to receive bread, but to meet mercy himself, the one who restores, heals, and gives back tomorrows. I am Clysha Best for Catholic News Altos. We now join Dale Sideno for Divine Mercy in San Fernando.
Thank you, Clysha. In San Fernando, the Zion RC community and the Southern Vicariate hosted a prayer walk and mercy celebration, bringing the message of mercy beyond the church walls and into the streets, starting at Harris Promenade and ending at Presentation College. The theme was drawn from Hebrews chapter 4, verse 16. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. FITIA speaker Father Matthew Deroux reflected on mercy as both redemptive and transformative. He emphasized that mercy is not something to be reserved only for difficult moments, but must become a constant in the life of every believer.
The transformative work of mercy must be in your DNA. The redemptive work of mercy must be in your DNA. The saving work of mercy must be in your DNA. It must become part of you. Not only when hurricane come in and earthquake rocking, we call it for mercy. Because we could end up reducing mercy for emergency.
Father Deroux noted that too often, people treat mercy as something temporary or situational.
Sometimes we treat mercy as momentary. For others, we give them mercy when we want. But let's come to something that is very, very important. Sometimes we treat mercy as a fix.
He reminded the gathering that mercy calls us to look to the future.
If we want mercy, and we share the mercy of the Father, do we look at people with eyes of mercy? Sometimes we don't have eyes of mercy in the church. We see others not for who they are, but for what they did. Eyes of mercy look to the future.
I am Dale Cedeno reporting for Catholic News, Altos.
As Catholics around the world observed Holy Thursday, the day marking the beginning of the Easter Triduum, the La Divina Pastoral Parish in Siparia took on a different feel, offering a very unique experience. Dale Cedeno was there and brings us this report.
In the southern borough of Siparia, a unique tradition unfolds every Holy Thursday. Catholicism has been practiced in this area for over 270 years, and as many faithful know, Holy Thursday is typically observed as a solemn and reflective time. However, at the parish of La Divina Pastora, there's a striking contrast. As you move from the quiet reverence inside the church to the streets outside, the atmosphere shifts dramatically. Surrounding the church is a vibrant, almost festive scene. Vendors line the streets selling a variety of items from food and drink to clothing, plants, jewelry, and much more. Among the crowds are many underprivileged individuals who gather along the roadway. As Theresa Noel explains, although the scale of this practice has changed over time, this is a tradition that dates back more than 160 years.
Since around the 1860s, the priest who was parish priest at the time, Father Cornelius Uhanlan, wrote about this custom of the East Indians who had newly come into Trinidad, really as indentured workers. They had already started coming to Siparia in order to visit the statue of La Divina Pastora, whom they call Supari Mai.
She explains the reason why this particular time of year was chosen.
But you may ask me, why this weekend? The reason for that is because this is the longest weekend. This is the time that the East Indian indentured workers used to leave their plantations and come down here. And you might ask, well, why do they need a whole weekend? It's because the custom in Eastern religions to make pilgrimage is by walking. Remember, some of these people were working on estates as far away as Diego Martin and Tacarigua and places like that. And they would come walking.
This tradition, which began with the East Indian indentured laborers, has since been embraced by people from not only Hindu backgrounds, but from a wide variety of religious beliefs. Today, many visit the statue of La Divina Pastora to pray, make offerings, to give to the poor, and for many parents, the cutting of the hair of their young sons for the first time. I am Dale Cedeno, reporting for Catholic News, Altos.
And this Sunday is the feast day celebrations of La Divina Pastora. As family, friends, and members of the community gathered at the St. Mary's RC Church in St. James to pay their final respects, the life of Mona Christo was celebrated as one rooted in faith, generosity, and service. Her son, Vicar for Communications Father Robert Christo, was chief celebrant for the funeral mass. Dale Cedeno was there and has more in this report.
A packed St. Mary's RSC Church in St. James on Saturday, with mourners spilling out into tents in the car park, bore witness to the impact of Muna Christo's life. Her son, Father Robert Christo, served as chief celebrant for the funeral mass. Delivering the homily, he expressed heartfelt gratitude for the outpouring of love and support from the community, noting that it has been a source of strength during this difficult time.
Church, it is very hard. I buried almost 450 people. This is not easy. Church is not easy, but the power of love in the community is sustaining me now. Church, I thank you for church. My mother did not belong to a church. My mother was church. That's why I could stand maybe trembling, but I will survive because God gives his people strength.
Muna Christo was eulogized by friend Joycelyn Yearwood as a woman deeply rooted in faith, having been a devoted Catholic from her early teens. Drawing on the story of the widow's mite from the Gospels of Mark and Luke, she was described as someone who gave selflessly, even from the little she had.
Mona was warm and easygoing. She welcomed everyone, even strangers, into a humble home and always had something to offer and share. When approached by those in need, her son David recalls that she would sometimes ask him in advance for his monthly contribution to the household. She would then take those very funds and give it to others who needed help buying food or school books for their children.
That spirit of generosity was also reflected in one of the most important lessons she passed on to her son, whom she encouraged to join the priesthood.
She taught me clearly, I am everything. I am. She says, give away everything and you go get. If you want more love, give it away. If you want more joy, fix the face joy. If you want more peace, right? The moment you hold it, you will lose it.
As a mark of respect for her life and for giving him to the church as a priest, Father Christo said he gave back to her, placing the cloth used to wipe his hands of the chrism oil at his ordination in her hands in her casket before her final send-off. I am Dale Cedeno reporting for Catholic News, Altos.
It's now time for us to take a short break, and when we return, we talk about St. Vincent de Paul and how you can help.
In this Sunday, April 19th issue of the Catholic News, International Mother Earth Day is on Wednesday, April 22nd. Its commemoration should remind us of the relevance of climate justice and more. A call from the Citizens for Conservation to support a major project, the restoration of the oldest cemetery in Trinidad and Tobago at the St. Joseph RC Church in St. Joseph. And psychologist and educator Dr. Margaret Nakachatur says the well-being of Trinidad and Tobago shouldn't be measured only in fiscal reports, but in the psychological state of our citizens. Here are the clergy anniversaries for the coming week. And the coming events. I'm Raymond Sims, editor of the Catholic News.
Over the Easter weekend, parishioners across the Archdiocese were encouraged to donate non-perishable food items to the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. It's an annual act of mercy, one that supports a single organization but ultimately helps thousands in need. Altos reporter Keelan Jordan spoke with the Society's president about rising demand, the cost of feeding the poor, and how the organization is coping.
This sponsored segment of Altos is brought to you with the kind compliments of Belgrove's Funeral Home. We do more than just say we care.
Easter donations of non-perishable food are a welcome help to the St. Vincent de Paul Society. But with demand growing daily, President of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, Nigel Phillip, told Altos that there are times the organization cannot keep up with demands.
Again, it is a challenge when we look at it holistically and we see the request for food has been growing every single day. And there's sometimes that the society cannot even meet the needs of that because sometimes we don't have the funds. We're very limited in funds.
Philip explained that the SVP operates on a model where monies received are not stored long-term, but used immediately to support those in need.
One of the rules of the Society of St. Vincent de Paul is that we're not supposed to have any large sums of funds sit down in a banking account doing nothing there for it to look good, but it is to do the work of the organization.
He says because of that structure, the SVP does not build large financial reserves, so support depends heavily on constant donations coming in. But there is no steady income stream.
Our money comes from mainly church donations, church collections, also from private sectors. Sometimes the government may give us subvention depending on what services that they can provide us support with, but it's those support is not so forthcoming.
Parish conferences distribute aid based on what each group collects. Some assist dozens of people, while others can only help a few. Despite these challenges, Philip says the SVP continues to serve a significant number of people each year.
It will work out to be an average of maybe 1,000 to 1,003 every year.
That includes regular food distribution at Duncan Street, where about 100 people are assisted every other Thursday. The society also supports a growing number of migrants.
The migrants, migrants is another growing population. We support close to about maybe 150 migrants average annually. And those conferences who help in that, the conferences are mainly in the south area.
The Society of St. Vincent de Paul says public support is necessary for those in need. Even small donations of food or essentials can help bridge the growing gap between need and available resources. To offer assistance, you can contact the Society of St. Vincent de Paul at 729-5818, 687-5320, or the office line at 229-0502. I am Kaylan Jordan reporting for Catholic News, Altos.
This sponsored segment of Altos was brought to you with the kind compliments of Belgrove's Funeral Home. We do more than just say we care.
Bishops of the Antilles Episcopal Conference, the AEC, are expected to meet with Pope Leo XIV later this month. They will be in Rome from April 27th to May 3rd for a major pilgrimage known as the Ad Limina Apostolorum. A press release issued by the AEC said a key highlight of the visit will be the meeting with Pope Leo when they are expected to discuss a range of issues, including youth and family life, migration, economic hardship, climate change, and the Church's mission. The bishops described the visit as a significant occasion in the life of the Church that serves to strengthen communion between the Antillean churches and the Holy See. Bishops will present reports on the state of their dioceses, outlining pastoral, spiritual, and social realities across the region. They will also discuss with Vatican officials what they describe as the blessings and the challenges faced in the Antillean region. The phrase Ad Limina Apostolorum means to the thresholds of the apostles, referring to the tombs of St. Peter and St. Paul in Rome. These visits take place about every 5 years and allow bishops to meet with the Pope and Vatican officials to reflect on the Church's mission. The bishops will also travel to Assisi to mark the 800th anniversary of the death of St. Francis of Assisi. And turning to Rome and the Pope, Pope Leo has slammed leaders who spend billions on wars and said the world was being ravaged by a handful of tyrants. The Holy Father spoke in Cameroon on Thursday, where he decried leaders who use religious language to justify wars and urged a decisive change of course. We have more in this report.
Pope Leo XIV condemned an endless cycle of destabilization and death as he visited Cameroon's English-speaking northwest on Thursday. The region has been gripped by a separatist conflict for nearly a decade. The pontiff spoke at St. Joseph's Cathedral in the city of Bamenda, the epicenter of the insurgency.
The masters of war pretend not to know that it takes only a moment to destroy. Yet often, a lifetime is often not enough to rebuild. They turn a blind eye to the fact that billions of dollars are spent on killing, on devastation, yet the resources needed for healing, education, and restoration are nowhere to be found. Those who rob your land of its resources generally invest much of the profit in weapons, thus perpetuating an endless cycle of destabilization and death. It is a world turned upside down, an exploitation of God's creation that must be denounced and rejected by every honest conscience.
In a solemn speech, Leo condemned those who manipulate religion and the name of God for their own military, economic and political gain.
We must make a decisive change of course, a true conversion that will lead us in the opposite direction, onto a sustainable path rich in human fraternity. The world is being ravaged by a handful of tyrants, yet is held together by a multitude of supportive brothers and sisters.
Conflict in Cameroon's Anglophone regions erupted after President Paul Biya violently put down peaceful demonstrations in 2016. At least 6,000 people have been killed in the past 10 years, according to the United Nations.
The first country on his itinerary on this tour was Algeria. He arrived in Cameroon on Thursday morning, where he will stay until Saturday, April 18th. He's expected to travel to Angola and Equatorial Guinea before returning to Rome on Thursday, April 23rd. As he departed Algeria, the Holy Father continued his message of peace, dialogue, and coexistence. He spoke with journalists aboard a flight from Algeria to Cameroon amid renewed criticism from U.S. President Donald Trump. He highlighted his recent visit to Algeria as a message of unity and interfaith respect, urging the world to embrace harmony despite differences.
So it was a special blessing for me personally to return once again to Annaba yesterday, but also to offer to the church and the world a vision that St. Augustine offers us in terms of that search for God and the struggle to build community, to seek for unity among all peoples and respect for all peoples in spite of the differences. So in 2 days in Algeria, I think we've really had a wonderful opportunity to, if you will, continue to build bridges, to promote dialogue. I think the visit to the mosque was significant, to say that although we have different beliefs, we have different ways of worshiping, we have different ways of living, we can live together in peace. And so I think that to promote that kind of image is something which the world needs to hear today, and that together we can continue to offer in our witness as we continue on this apostolic voyage.
And that's a wrap for our show this week. We thank you so very much for viewing. We continue to urge you to pray for Trinidad and Tobago, to pray for the world peace, and to read your Bible and learn your faith. As we go, we leave you with the procession through the streets of Sangre Grande on Divine Mercy Sunday on April 12th. Have a blessed and safe week, everyone.
Altos was brought to you with the kind compliments of Rituals Coffee House and Belgrove's Funeral Home. We do more than just say we care.